So our group picked stereotypes as our topic for our presentation. My name is Steven Santora.
I'm Cole Butler, and Jonathan Faber is behind the camera.
So we thought a good way to start our presentation off was defining what a stereotype is. The first definition we got was from the Hall text. This said, stereotypes are attributions that cover up individual differences and ascribe certain characteristics to an entire group of people. We also thought it was appropriate to find another outside definition from a supplemental reading we had throughout the semester. This one we found was W. Lippmann. This was from the Journal of Intercultural Communication. Lippmann stated that stereotypes are simplified and often distorted pictures in our heads which refer to phenomena and people, and which help people overcome an overwhelming amount of information and complexity of the surrounding world.
Thesis. Anyone who believes that we are going to eliminate stereotyping is misdirected and misinformed. We need categories to function in our world, and human categories unavoidably turn into stereotypes. What is important, then, is not eliminating stereotypes, but recognizing them for what they are and managing them in productive ways. This means working hard to make our stereotypes more accurate, keeping them open to being refined, and always allowing for individual differences.
Next thing that was highlighted in the Hall text was the fundamental attribution error. We thought this was important throughout the Hall text and with regards to stereotypes. So the fundamental attribution error is when humans are accustomed to categorization, and there are many different levels of categorization. An example of this is food, as there are many different types of food, cuisines, styles, and much more. This shows how complex our world is in our environment, and categorization makes it possible for us to manage and at least in part understand it. So this can also translate into the categorization of humans, not just food. So for example, here's a list of stereotypes in relation to the categorization of humans. So the first one we have here was women are good listeners. The second one is men are often aggressive. The third one was being careful around people who dress a certain way, having that mentality once we visually see somebody. And the fourth one was men do not listen well. The next thing we talked about was acculturation. The Hall text talked about the hero's journey, where they gave an example from Joseph Campbell's work, where he actually took the acculturation experience and related it with his work on mythic heroes. So the fourth part of the six-part journey he describes is the trials one face with intercultural travel. So there are 5 paradoxes along the way that the hero may face, and the first one is seeing as valid the general stereotypes about the local culture, but also at the same time realizing that many host country relations do not fit that stereotype. Experience in another culture encourages one to see how certain communal tendencies create stereotypes that can help a person understand and deal with members of the new culture. At the same time, one gains a better understanding of the general culture while also discovering more individuals do not fit that stereotype.
Next, we'll move into the 5 points of variance. Stereotypes vary along 5 major dimensions: direction, intensity, specificity, consensus, and accuracy.
So the first major point of variance we saw was direction. So direction actually refers to whether a stereotype is positive or negative. Positive stereotypes should be taken with a grain of salt, though, as they alienate a specific group from acting in other ways. So an example that we came up with was Canadians are polite. Although this is a positive stereotype, this also could mean Canadians are pushovers. And an example of a negative stereotype was dubbing people either lazy, rude, or dumb. Another positive stereotype is calling a certain group of people polite or smart.
Next, intensity. The second major point of variance is intensity. Intensity refers to how strong stereotypes are held, as they can be either strong or weak. This could be because we were exposed to them at a young age, and many experiences since then have supported our stereotypical view. An example of a strongly held stereotype is that politicians are corrupt. An example of a weakly held stereotype is that engineers may lack social skills. Specificity. The third major point of variance is specificity. Stereotypes can either be vague or specific, and often the more specific the stereotype is, the easier it is to break down and analyze the stereotype. A vague stereotype, such as a certain group being rude, is tough to deal with because what counts as rude can often vary depending on the person. A more specific stereotype, such as the concept of African American handshakes, are easier to analyze as there is less room for generalization and misinterpretation.
So the fourth major point of variance is consensus, so which measures how well stereotypes can be known or accepted. Some stereotypes have become so well known that it only takes an indirect reference for us to be reminded of them. So one example of a well-known stereotype is that gay men are stylish dressers. Another well-known stereotype is that college students are binge drinkers. Both these stereotypes are commonly known, but the measure in which they're accepted depends on the individual.
Next, accuracy. The fifth major point of variance is accuracy. Accuracy judges the correctness of a stereotype. A specific type of stereotype is called a sociotype, and these are often accurate from a statistical standpoint. An example of a sociotype is the level of formal education or certain average amount of income a group has. Based on these statistical measures, these so-called sociotypes are often accurate generalizations. We can also see different cultural communities sharing common practices and attitudes. And although these are not statistical measures, these generalizations may also be true.
So in conclusion, we first started off with defining stereotypes under both the Hull and Lippmann definitions. We then discussed the power of categorization and how categorization enables us to manage and understand the world around us. We then moved on to using the 5 points of variance discussed in the Hull text. We dissected stereotypes into 5 major dimensions. Through this, we can relate everything back to our main thesis, which states that stereotypes occur naturally and we'll never be able to eliminate them. Rather, we must recognize them for what they are and manage them in productive ways. Thank you.